All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is Left Bank Books welcomes St. Louis area authors and teachers, PJ Creek and Jamie Creek, who will discuss their new book, perfect for classrooms and curious readers. We the People and the President, an infographic look at the American presidency. Beautiful book. Left Bank Books is St. Louis's oldest independent bookstore. We would like to thank all of our supporters, the supporters of PJ and Jamie, and everyone for their outpouring of love for our bookstore. Left Bank Books offers in-store shopping, curbside pickup, and delivery to anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world even. We are happy to be able to bring our event series virtual. We believe that events are a way to expand your mind and bring in new thoughts to make the world a better place. We hope that you enjoy this event, and we hope that you support Left Bank Books by purchasing a signed copy for you or for your friends on our website, left-bank.com. They were so incredibly, we are very thankful that they were able to come by and sign copies of the book. So we have all signed copies available for purchase at the store. And if you would like to request a personalized copy, you can do that as well in your order. Just leave a note in the order comments letting us know, hey, I want this personalized to me. I want this personalized to my mom. Whatever you want to do, they will be happy to come in and sign it and make it special for whoever you would like to give it to. And I want to thank you so much for your support. It has been really incredible to do all these author events, and your support is what allows us to continue bringing you incredible authors. I am Shane Mullen. I am the events coordinator for Left Bank Books. Cliff will be joining us here in a moment, and with Cliff's help, we produce hundreds of author events each year with a fantastic team here in St. Louis. Sorry, my cat is going a little bonkers right now. We will be taking questions from you, the audience, at the end of the event, so you can type your questions as a comment. Be sure to follow Left Bank Books on Facebook and YouTube to be notified about all of our fantastic virtual events. And now, about tonight's book, We the People and the President, an infographic look at the American presidency. Perfect for reluctant readers and anyone interested in American history. We the People and the President offers a glimpse into the intricacy of the American presidency for a foundation of knowledge for the youngest of readers. Ever wonder who the presidents really were? Ever wonder if our electoral system will evolve or remain the same? Who's your favorite president? This accessible, uniquely formatted picture book from PJ and Jamie Creek covers it all. Find out everything you want to know about the American presidency, who the presidents were, how we vote, whose votes count the most, in this book completely comprised of infographics. And now, about our speakers this evening. PJ and Jamie Creek teach middle school in Southern Illinois. Each summer, they travel the United States exploring historic sites with their 3 children, Noah, Everett, and Charlotte. In 2006, they founded Periodic Presidents, a company designed to teach American history through art and infographics. And now, I would love it if you would help me in welcoming our fantastic guests for the evening. We have PJ and Jamie Creek, and here is my co-host, Cliff Helm.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for doing this. This is fantastic.
Oh, we are so thrilled to be able to do this. We are Left Bank Books has been like our all-time favorite bookstore for pretty much our whole lives. So this is pretty surreal for us, and we're so fortunate to have an awesome bookstore like you guys so close to us here in St. Louis. So we're very excited to be here.
Excellent. It's fantastic. I also want to commend you on putting together an absolutely beautiful book. It's fantastic.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks, Cliff. Thanks, Shane. We really tried to get a whole bunch of American history, condensed down and teach kids about the basics so that they can use it and go out on their own and do something and make some positive change if they want to.
Fantastic.
So we basically one of the main things that we wanted to communicate is the importance of history, and through graphics, I think we engage the reader. Maybe if you're a little reluctant, you can approach the book and learn something from anything from how the voting process works to trivia about the presidents to deeper questions about, who is we the people and how has that evolved over time. And so our main goal is to get kids activated and to get excited about history. And I think that's a major goal of ours.
And as Shane mentioned, we're both teachers, so everything that we built from first page all the way through the sources page at the end is with the goal of education and convincing kids that history is cool and learning is cool and books are awesome, and all of these things that as teachers we believe, and we try so hard to get our students to believe as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely got me engaged, and it's a great concept because I can open it to any page and learn a thing. I can open it to any page and find something I didn't know, or find something I want to know more about. And I love the back here. There's so much for me to follow up with, which is just, it's great. I need someone to hold my hand to all the information.
You know what? Yeah, that was a major goal of ours, was to be able to open the book up at any point and dive in, or take it more like a narrative piece, start from the beginning, build up, and then near the end you're kind of working through a presidency or through history a little bit. So I'm glad you said that, Cliff. That was something that we really tried to do, because I think sometimes books can be intimidating to kids, perhaps, and especially history books. Right? Or a books, when you hear the word civics, I know even some adults kind of shudder a little bit, like, wait, a civics book? Is this really what we sit down and read and relax, But hopefully somebody could open the book, be drawn in by the colors, maybe drawn in by the art, drawn in by some words or some phrases that they want to know something more about, and then stick with a graphic or stick with the book over a couple pages. So that's a major goal of ours for sure.
Yeah, no, you hit it on the head. You got it. Excellent. So you have a presentation.
We do.
We have a short presentation.
Just a little one.
We know as teachers that we don't want to give a long PowerPoint. We don't want to bore anybody out there. But we'll give you a little insight maybe into the creation process that we came up with, or how we do it a little bit, maybe from start to a finished graphic, and in between that, some ideas that we had, and just give you a little bit of insight into what we were thinking when we made the book.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful.
Are we ready for me to bring the presentation up?
Yeah, we're ready.
All right. I'm going to take Cliff and I out, and we will see you in a little bit. I'm excited for the presentation.
Okay, thanks. Okay. All right.
Can we start?
Yeah, you can start. Go ahead.
So this is our book, We the People and the President. We're really excited to share this book with you, and we have been, for those of you that are in the crowd and our friends and our family, you know that this has been a huge part of our lives for several years now, and it's something that we really put our whole selves into, and building from literally the first end paper all the way through the last end paper. We've really poured ourselves into this. And we found out a couple weeks ago that we made the notable social studies trade book list for young people, which is a list that as teachers we have used to curate our own classroom libraries for 15 years now. So to see our own names on this list was completely surreal. It was a really amazing accomplishment for us. It was kind of what we had dreamed would happen, and then it did. So it was pretty amazing for us.
So we thought we'd take you through maybe some of the ideas where we started, and how do you take history and then bring it into a graphic, an infographic, and make it somewhat interesting or engaging. So let's start with where we started. We kind of started with this periodic table of the presidents as our anchor point to a lot of our work, and we started by selling posters of this to classrooms because we were trying to fill a need for something that was kind of missing in the classroom. And we thought, why not take the presidents and mix it with the periodic table of the elements, and out came this. And after that, I think we realized we could have a lot of conversations around this. When we have this hung up in our classrooms, kids gather around and talk about it. When we take this to conferences and present, people gather around and talk about it. And we thought, what a great way to have a conversation about history through art and through color and through data, basically. And I know that doesn't exactly sound interesting, color, art, and data, but we try to mix that up and come out on the other side with something that can maybe educate and also perhaps inspire. So, in our process, when we were writing this book, we have a lot of data.
Yes, we have a lot of data, and this is sort of the backbone of our book, is that we're using these primary sources. And if there are any of our students out there listening, I know you just heard me say primary sources again. You're like, please, Mrs. Creek, stop saying primary sources.
Please.
But this is where it all starts, and we tried really hard to base as much as we could in these primary source data. And the question for us really became, okay, let's take something like this. This is the 1790 census. And when you look at it, it's just a whole bunch of numbers, and it's a chart, and there are all kinds of weird words on here. And a lot of times when we're looking at these sources, there's cursive words, and half of the words are missing because they're so old. And I have to wear reading glasses now because I poured through census data for so long. But the question is, okay, how do I take this information and turn it into something that, number one, tells a story, and number two, is a story that people actually want to read and
Right.
be a part of. And that's where PJ comes in, because I would give PJ all this data, and then he would make it look beautiful with his graphics.
So we tried to take, well, thank you. We tried to take all of that data and maybe condense it down and find a story. What is the story? And this graphic is a good example of how do you take census data, many pages, thousands of pages,
Yes.
hundreds of pages, condense it down and find that story within the data, because we knew there was an important story there somehow. And so this graphic, for example, shows rural and urban population with the light green and the dark green circle targets there in the middle over the years, going from left to right. It shows land area of the United States as the blue squares. It shows population as the orange circles, and how the United States of America has changed over time. It shows population race demographics over time. It shows life expectancy, the median age. And we think, if you can look at this and if you can start understanding some part of this, you start to understand some part of history.
And this is kind of our goal, is take these super big topics and condense them so that they're readable. And a lot of our book, and I don't know that it necessarily started this way. When we started this process, we were really writing an infographic book about the presidents. And then as time went on, we found that more and more of our stories were really civics and talking about the Constitution and what does it mean to be a part of this community and a part of this American community. And so a lot of our spreads really start with the Constitution. And in fact, one of our very first spreads is just called We the People. And the title of the book is We the People, because it became such an integral part of our book. And this specific text that you're reading on the side here is the text that explains what a president has to be. And the president only has to be three things. They have to be natural born, and they have to be 35 years old, and they had to have lived in the United States for 14 years. And as we really wanted to pull that out as a graphic, but then as we started building that graphic, we realized that, okay, yeah, they definitely all three have those characteristics, but there are other things that stood out to us as well. And so then this is where this graphic came from.
So we, by the numbers, tried to take all of this presidential data and started with the 45 presidents blue circle. That then represents, proportionally, the other circles are based on size besides that. And we started to pull the data, and as you have a bigger bubble, you have more presidents who have that similarity. And so some that stand out to us are 33 earned a college degree, the blue bubble at the top. 36 have been millionaires or equivalents at the time, the red bubble at the bottom. 33 have had blue or gray eyes. We thought that was an odd similarity throughout our research. And then you look through the data, and sometimes it's unclear exactly, do they say blue or do they say gray eyes? And that's a whole other story, I think. And maybe that speaks to, well, how is that going to change over time as well? That's another story that we want to tell. Is 31 presidents have served in the military, 12 have been generals, but is the general military type person still this idea of what a president is? And what will this look like? What will this graphic look like in 20 years?
It'll be totally different. Yeah.
And it all starts from this little flag at the top left corner there that says the 3 requirements of the president are, and that's from the Constitution. And the rest has been just how the process has worked and who the American people have voted for. And so I think this would be an interesting graphic, I think, to see how it would change over time. And
that would be really cool to see.
And how the presidency changes as the American people change as well.
And which bubbles get bigger and which bubbles get smaller.
Right.
And something that, can you go back to that for just 1 second? No, it just made me think something that before writing this book, and this is probably any authors that are listening to me right now are going to be like, well, of course, but we did not realize the editing process that went along with the book. We have spent 10 years building our own graphics for classrooms and building our own lessons. And when we went to publish this page, our poor copy editor, who is in charge of fact checking every single thing on this page, was at one point, she just had a note that said, I'm pretty sure that Jimmy Carter is the only peanut farmer, but I would have to read 45 presidential biographies to know that for sure. And so we had to kind of modify it a little bit. And it made us sort of realize as we finished this book, and I have been a reader my whole life, and PJ has been a reader his whole life, but I don't think I ever really appreciated the value in knowledge that is transmitted through books, because they are so valid and they're checked over so many times, and they go through such a rigorous process. And then on top of that, the importance of libraries that help to push this knowledge out to not only our kids, but to adults, and our independent bookstores that do the same thing. It's such a huge part of knowledge transmission that I know that PJ is really excited, and I'm really excited to be a part of that now.
Well said. I think Cliff had alluded to this graphic earlier, our government tree, and we like to play with the format of a book. As Jamie was saying, we really enjoy books, and occasionally when you have to flip the book around. So this government tree book, or this government tree graphic in the book, is kind of one of these that evolved over time. We had drawn these things in our classrooms. We had talked about this. And how do you take this idea of the U.S. government, make it approachable to someone, and at least start there? It can't include every single bit of the U.S. government. But as we were looking at this graphic, I think this paragraph became kind of the thesis of our book. And I think, Jamie, do you want to read?
Do you want to read it? Yeah. Okay. So if you can kind of see it on the bottom there as well, but I'll read it to you. It says, the government tree. Our national government has been standing strong for centuries. It has weathered changing political climates, numerous election seasons, and even a civil war. Rooted in the Constitution, the national government is divided into 3 branches, each with separate and distinct powers. We, the people, are the caretakers of this government. It is our participation that keeps it healthy. Yeah, I think we had a call on Monday, and she read that page to us, and we both sort of looked at each other and said, I think that's kind of the thesis of our book.
Yeah. We, the people, are the caretakers of this government, and it's our participation that keeps it healthy.
Yeah.
And positively impacting the community around you, and getting involved. Even small acts can get involved. I think that became what we're a major part of our book. And we're only going to present one more, right? One more.
That's it. Just
one more primary source.
One more idea, and then
This
we'll
is
have
it.
some fun.
If there's any students out there, this is it. So this significant legislation, the Voting Rights Act of 1964, it's in the book several times, but I think this is another one where you can see the piece of legislation, but how many people are going to read that word for word, honestly? And how many people are going to say, okay, I kind of know what that means, but there's a long history to this. This has been over many years. And in 1965, the Voting Rights Act is passed, but that's not the end of it, And I think that I don't want to say fight for voting rights, but maybe sometimes it is. And I think that's an important piece to where you can look at a piece like this along the way of our history, but what exactly does it mean? And how do you take something like this graphic, which is voter turnout, and say, okay, if we have these pieces of legislation that have been passed, if we have these requirements by state, or if we have these obstacles that have been in place, that have been put in place by states, how does that impact voter turnout? Or how does turnout change over time? And I think this graphic was one where we took data and we wanted to tell a story about how voter turnout has changed over time. So in the book, you'll see, pieces like this. And I think it's significant. Last election, 67% voter turnout, the highest in a long time. And this is another one, I think that's a question of what's this going to look like in the future? How are voting rights changing? Or how is access to voting changing? Are there obstacles being in place? And I think that's something that we've explored in this book. And I think we can go back to see challenging the president in this graphic with women's right to vote and working for that nationwide, and taking this banner and speaking about, or taking this banner as a focal point. I think this is one of your favorite graphics.
Yeah, this one ended up being my favorite graphic in the whole book. And partly because it's just really simple and it's such a powerful piece of text, and also because it's rooted in a primary source, but also because a lot of the book is really data and number focused, and this one tells a story, and you get to have Alice Paul and Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott and these Americans, and that was a hugely important thing to us, to pull in Americans into this book, not just the presidents, but really try to tell this story of what happens when these people interact with the president. And this is the story of women's suffrage fighters and their conversations with Woodrow Wilson, and sort of how he changed his mind along the way about women voting. And also it ties right back into the voter turnout, that those numbers are real people. So if we say 67% of eligible voters voted, those are real people that we're talking about. It's not just some number. That number shows how strong our democracy is. Those numbers are important going forward in time, especially.
Yeah, and I think that pretty much summarizes what you're saying there. It's a dynamic relationship between the people and the government, and the people and the president, and what exactly that means, and how people participate, and how people speak, what their voices are saying. And this graphic, I think, is another graphic that shows the title once again: "We the People and the President." Right? So I think that's our spiel there. I think we didn't go too long, and we didn't use too many primary sources.
Hopefully not too many primary sources. Okay, so now we thought it would be kind of fun for PJ and I have written down questions with the help of our children. Are Charlie and Ev, are you guys out there? Not sure if they're out there right now. But we wrote down questions, and neither one of us know what those questions are. And Charlie helped us do it, and Everett helped us do it, so that we can prove to you that neither one of us know. Hey, you guys can come on in. Yeah, come in. Can you hear them knocking? Hello. There, come on screen. Just do a little wave. Say hi. Hey guys. Hey. So Charlie and Everett helped us to write some questions for each other, and we have no idea what they are. So hopefully you were nice to me.
Pick one, I think.
So we'll pick a couple, and then we have to answer them, kind of without preparation.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thanks. Do you want to go first, or want me to go first?
We're middle school teachers. We
I
had
know,
to
that's what
add
we do.
some little,
That's what we do.
fun activity here.
Yeah, no, gamify it. I love it.
Right. Gamify the classroom.
Yeah, we gamified the author visit. Okay. Oh, look, Charlie put little bows on.
Oh, that's nice.
That's cute. Okay. Question number 1. Oh, wait, this one's yours. That's yours.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Question number 1. Okay. Which graphic or particular spread makes you the most proud? Oh, okay. You know what? I would say that's a good question.
I know, because you did them all. You're the graphic person.
I would say, you know what? Probably the along party lines. We have one where how the political parties change over time, because I felt like I was learning, what exactly an Abraham Lincoln Republican in 1860 is different than a Dwight D. Eisenhower Republican in 1960, or around that era. So I thought that one's kind of fun, because I think I learned the most while doing it.
You learned while doing it.
Yeah,
That's
learned
really
while
good.
doing it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay.
My question.
Okay. You want a question?
Oh,
Pick
I
one.
got numbers instead of folks. Okay. Also, Charlie told me that she said Dad's questions are much better than your questions. Okay. Oh, that's good. If you had to pick a side, is this a history book or is this a civics book? I have to pick a side?
I have to pick a side.
I can't go down the middle. Okay. I think it's a civics book. I think it started as a history book. And I think that was what our book deal was for our history book. And then I think the political climate changed a little bit, which made us feel pushed in a certain direction. But also I think just being teachers, it just made more sense to us that civics education is so, so important, not just right now, but always. And so I think that our spreads ended up going that direction. Well, I want to know if you agree.
I agree. I agree.
Wait, that's not yours, is it?
I have one more question here.
Oh, yeah. No, that one's mine, too. Where'd you do with my questions?
Okay.
Yeah. Here. I don't know where they went. Oh, here they are. You should answer that one.
Okay. This is fun. If you could go back in time a few years ago when we started writing this book, what would you tell yourself? I would tell myself, make sure you get a lot of sleep right now, because you're not going to get a lot of sleep here in the future. In the next few years, you're not going to sleep very much. That's probably what I tell myself. That's good. That's a good question.
That would be good. That would be good. You want me to answer this one? Question number 2?
Yes, I think that's it.
Okay. Do you remember? Oh, this is funny. Okay. Tell us about our family trip to Andrew Jackson's house when Charlotte got scared. Okay. I would love to tell you that story. So I have to tie it back to the book. I feel like in some way, almost all of our book is based in visits that we take with our family. So most of our spreads start with some really cool trip. This one was really interesting. Charlotte was probably 2. And we walked into Andrew Jackson's house, and we kept telling her that whole day, we're going to Andrew Jackson's house tonight. We're going to Andrew Jackson's house. And so we get there, and she's like, well, where's Andrew Jackson? And we're like, well, honey, Andrew Jackson's not here. This is his house. Andrew Jackson died a really long time ago. And so then about halfway through the tour that was before us was upstairs, and the floor was creaking upstairs, and Charlotte went into full panic mode, thinking that Andrew Jackson was upstairs. She started screaming in the middle of the tour, is that Andrew Jackson? That was a great story.
I think that one actually made us think, when we go to these presidential sites,
sometimes
that, wait a minute, maybe we need to explain the basics here.
Yes.
About exactly what's going on. We're not actually going to someone's house like when we go to a friend's house or family's house.
Right.
We're going to these houses that are still there, and it made us change our perspective a little bit on how to approach this history thing. We go to these places that still exist, but we're not going there to visit the people there. We're going just to see this place and to experience maybe
what that feels like.
Mm-hmm. So thanks for following along with our fun little game.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. So
that was fantastic. We've never had that in an author event, I don't think. So you created a thing.
It's the first time for everything.
I want to share a couple of comments from the audience. There are so many wonderful comments. You have a lot of students that are here joining us tonight. But Carrie says, it's so important to teach young readers to be civic-minded, informed, and engaged. This book fits that need so well. David says, hands down, one of the best teaching tools in my classroom. If the publisher is watching, they should be writing these down, because these are just perfect blurbs for this book. And before we go into some of Cliff and I's questions, one last comment from Jamie. My kids, who are different ages and take very different approaches to reading, have both enjoyed this book. It has led to good discussions and curious questions. Rare to see such engagement in a history book, so thank you.
That's great. Thank you, guys.
And to everyone watching at home, if you have questions, be sure to type them up. We have a few questions already, but Cliff and I, we have our own.
Dibs. We go first.
I want to start, Cliff. So my question is, we kind of planned this event around Monday being President's Day. So I'm curious what you, A, do to celebrate President's Day, B, what the significance is for President's Day, both historically and present day. So I'm wondering if President's Day has changed in kind of the way it has been recognized. I don't honestly know the answer, so really I would be surprised to hear whatever the case might be. I had a C, but I don't remember it. So yeah.
Well, I'll take the A one.
Sure.
You take B.
Sure.
We have always, in the past, we used to have a pretty awesome President's Day party. COVID has put a little bit of a damper on that, but costumes were involved. There were winners. We had games. President's Day has always been kind of a big deal. Since this year, we ended up actually canceling an event that we had planned because of COVID. We decided to spend the day. We still wanted to do something, historical, and so we decided to go out to Cahokia Mountains. And we took a walk, and it was beautiful, and just sort of felt that space, and it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, and I'd piggyback on that a little bit with B. We were talking to each other that maybe it's not President's Day. Maybe it should be History Day. Mm-hmm. Maybe it should be, not a time to just memorize some facts about the presidents or look at trivia about the presidents. Maybe it should be more, let's explore history. Let's see what history's about. And I think that's where we go with it, is to look at our shared past, both good and bad sometimes, right? And what we can learn from that past. And I know it might sound cliched, but we think the past informs our present. And I think it makes sense, about why do we celebrate these holidays? I think holidays like why do we have a President's Day is a good question. Is it still officially George Washington's birthday? Yeah, I believe in most places. I think that's a good question on what exactly are we honoring? Are we honoring a person? Are we honoring this group of 45 people at this point? Or are we kind of honoring this idea that history matters and that studying the past is something worthwhile to do? I think that's how we view it, maybe.
No, I do think that is how we view it. Yeah, and I think it's kind of hard, and it's hard to love all the presidents. There's some ugly history there as well. So we have sort of, I think, moved a little bit more in that path of this is our shared history, this is our story. It is important for us to know our story, and you take the good with the bad, but maybe it's the story more than the men themselves right now.
Right.
Excellent. That's fantastic. I loved that answer. And it's a joy to, I can only imagine what it is to be in your classroom, but it is a joy to learn from people who are enthralled by their subject, people who love what they do, people who are actually interested in learning and intellectually curious about the things that they teach. So I commend you there. It comes across very well.
Thank you.
I'm gonna do the silly questions.
Okay.
So one of my favorite spreads is Mail to the Chief.
Okay.
It's great. I think I wrote 1 or 2 letters through school to the president as a kid. I have no idea what they said. Nothing worth remembering. But I'm curious, how many letters did you sift through to find these, or did you just find them at random?
You know, a couple of them were like the Harry Truman letter is one of my very favorite moments at a historical site ever. Harry S. Truman kept in his desk a Purple Heart and a letter from a dad whose son had died, and it says so much about Harry S. Truman that he kept that letter in his desk until he died. So some of them we sort of came across that way, just kind of naturally. There's an amazing resource. It's called Letters to the Presidents, and it's he did a lot of that research for us. So he's cited in the sources of our book, and then some of them just came from the president's websites, like the ones that stood out to them are sometimes just posted on. Like Bill Clinton had some great ones posted on his site, so they came from there as well. But the best one, the Reagan letter that's in there, that was from that letters to the president. And my favorite part of that graphic is the little address at the bottom where it says, "Hey, go write the president. This guy works for you. You should."
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So
it may be like an older thing that we used to do in schools, maybe to write the president, but I think those things matter. You know, do something that simple. That's civic participation. It doesn't mean you have to go out and do some grand plan. That's civic participation.
And to just get across the point that you have access, you know, but even though it doesn't feel like it, you do have a line of communication.
Yeah, right.
Snail mail.
Yeah, snail mail. Yeah.
Since I'm supposed to ask the serious questions.
Okay.
So first off, I love the book so much that I actually read through like your sources and the information at the end of the book, because just the whole book is packed with information. And I saw one of my favorite resources, which is the very short guide or very short introduction. I saw that as one of your sources. So I'm wondering how you found all of these sources, what your research methods were, and what the most fun research source was.
That's good. I would say first off, Shane, that the sources that we put in the back, we wanted to devote some real estate to the sources. We thought that was important in the book itself, and I know our editors thought the same thing. You know, let's not just present infographics and then you end the book and where did all that information come from? I know we run across infographic books that don't really list the sources and don't tell us what these are built on. Because what we did find along the way, Shane, that some of our sources we can't rely on as heavily. And so that was a learning experience for us, you know, having these sources that we had used in the past and we thought were solid, good, reliable sources. Maybe it was a little shaky. So we wanted to present the books and the works that we thought are important, and also that we thought if a student's interested in Mail to the Chief or whatever graphic it is, maybe they flip to the back and they can see, well, maybe I'll read this book about this, and maybe it's a little more in depth or a little more intense of a study, but that we thought was super important. I think the most fun resource or the most interesting.
I think I always just enjoy reading the Kenneth C. Davis books. Anything Kenneth C. Davis in there, we're huge fans. And honestly, a lot of our sources came from our favorite authors like Linda Monk and Kenneth C. Davis going through their sources to see who they used, because we're like, well, we love their stuff, so surely this will make sense for us as well.
Right. I would say that one book, the most fun presidential book we've ever encountered, which I don't think you can find on Amazon, I don't think so, is Herbert Hoover's Guide to Fishing.
For sure. Yeah.
That was hands down.
Yeah.
That didn't make it to the sources list, but if you ever need some advice for trout fishing from a president, Herbert Hoover has a book out there, and it's fun. It's interesting. It's fun. But I think mainly probably our biggest. It's sitting right here.
Oh gosh, yes.
This is probably where you'll probably see this name a lot. The complete book on U.S. presidents. And when we mean complete, we mean complete
it's
book.
Legit, yes.
So this is probably our most used resource for the book. So in that regard, this one's fun because it has a lot of information for us.
Since you do have a lot of students watching, how do you decide when a source is maybe not something that is as reliable as you once thought?
Oh, that's a great question.
Great question.
We have learned through this process that number one, you look at the publisher. You want to make sure that it's a good publisher. And then also, like, just to stick with, we were trying to find information in so many different places where we would have been better off a lot of times just sticking with like one source that we could kind of use throughout. And we wanted to have such a really big scope that we kind of needed all those different sources. Right. But government sources are good, like the census data, like that's census data.
Right.
Like that's just real. That's just there. So those sources are always pretty accurate. The National Historic Sites, those are great sources, as long as you're using their publications. Those are good sources. What else do we find?
Well, I think you just have to go with the best available source. And if you find a better source that's more reliable, then that one beats that previous source. So I think that was the process. Maybe there's a stack of 20 books. And as you're going through things and fact-checking things with multiple resources and getting the best piece of evidence that you can, maybe 5 of those books get put off to the side, and you're going to say, you know what, interesting read, great information, but let's use these 12 sources instead, or whatever it is.
Interesting. So being open-minded and open to new information that contradicts what you previously thought, that it turns out that's important. Interesting.
Yeah. Imagine that. Imagine that. A world where we actually fact check things and try to make sense of it.
Yeah.
Being facetious, but I mean, I think that's the important process that we've learned and we want to pass on to others. Is that this is why bookstores, libraries, this is why they are important and need to remain important, is because they are a storehouse of information that's been fact-checked and checked again and is reliable. And you can go there and you can explore. And we feel strongly about that. And in a world where I think we rely a lot on internet sources, which are great for
just a quick
information. But let's be careful basing a whole line of things after that, or at least check your sources, or I think we titled it Consider the Source, make sure at least considering it. And then we're letting you know where the source came from. So we're being open about that. I think that's also important. Mistakes happen and ideas kind of change sometimes over time. Especially in history. Yeah. Interpretations and things get discovered, that we don't know about yet, but will get discovered. So maybe that changes the story a little bit. But at least you can go back and see where the information came from. And I think that's lacking sometimes today is, well, where exactly are we getting the information? If you hear something, is that really good information, perhaps, to base a sound judgment on? And I think that's what this book has taught us, to really focus on that and make that a key point in life in general, and in education as well.
Excellent. Is there a particular concept you try to get across in graphic form and couldn't make work or had to retool. I'm just curious about what you left on if anything, on the cutting room floor.
We left.
Yeah, that's a good question.
We ended up, well, the book when we started this book, it was a 40-page book, and then about halfway through the process, they decided it should be an 80-page book, and so we didn't really have to cut a lot. In fact, we ended up having to add a whole bunch. I know that the census page that PJ built, that was one that got reworked several times just to try. We knew that there was such a great story there, and we knew what we wanted to be on that page, and it was just a really hard one to pull off. But you can definitely speak to that more than I can.
I didn't really think about that before, but I think what happens more, Cliff, is ideas are probably left on the cutting room floor. And I'd say making the second half of this book, especially, it's more of like sculpting ideas and taking this one and that one. And then how does the medium of the book allow us to present that idea? And so instead of having whole spreads maybe cut, it was probably bits and pieces or ideas of a spread not making the cut, or other ones being brought in because it was maybe a little weak and we needed another angle on the story. So I think it was a continual process. And some of these bled into the others spread, like political party prism. We wanted to describe the political parties, but then we were saying, well, wait a minute. We have to tell people and kids or the readers that a Republican from, like we said earlier, from the 1800s might not have similar ideas as a Republican from the 1900s, et cetera. So those ideas have changed over time. Let's make a graphic on that. And we could have gone for as long as time allowed, I think. We could have had to get cut off at some point, I think.
Excellent. Do you want to go to the audience?
Yeah, I've got a couple queued up. So we have a lot of great audience questions for you, and some of them are going to be stumpers, I hope. But if you are watching, which I know there are a bunch of people watching that probably have questions, so be sure to type those up, and we are going to dive in. So let's start with Scott's question. What's your next big book idea? And obviously, will it be dedicated to your favorite neighbors who now live in South Dakota or maybe San Diego? It just says SD. I assume South Dakota.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you know what? I would say, number one, that it's probably, we would like to lean towards the civics. We would like to lean towards the Constitution. That's where our brain's going, I think. Yeah. That's where that's what we think is something that can be, we could do a nice spin on that, yeah. I think, and extend this idea of we the people and the president, and bring in these engaging pieces of history and these, a president's book. We always said presidents are like, a key focal point for a book. People are drawn to that type of stuff. And so if we could find more things about the presidents and the Constitution, the American people, that's where we'd like to move towards, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're just going to take a Sharpie, Scott, and write it underneath our kids' names where it says to Noah, Everett, and Charlotte. We'll just put to our ex-neighbors. And then it'll be the same thing. It'll be the same.
Which you can do because you're the authors.
Right.
So.
That's right.
Do you want queued up, Cliff, or do you want me to do?
I don't have it.
Okay. So Amy Lynn has quite a few questions. So I think I can do this all at once. Okay. So Mrs. Creek, why did you decide to write or actually this might be Jersey asking the question. Mrs. Creek, why did you decide to write the book? Do you think you've changed any lives? Because it is my favorite book. It teaches many things to me and probably to many other people. And also it has had me think back and take interest in this and become a social studies teacher. You're the best teacher.
Oh, well, okay, first of all, Jersey, that just made my whole night. So thank you. The reason that we wrote it is because we really feel I mean, we're pretty passionate about this stuff, and the more people that we can bring into this world, it just makes us really happy. Like, it's what we want to do with our lives, is to bring more and more people into books and into history and into this kind of civic-minded idea. And we hope like we kind of said when we first got the book in our hands, and we were really excited about the way it turned out, and we kind of said, this is so cool, like this could actually be someone's favorite book one day. And that's a pretty amazing feeling. It's really special to have that thought, because I mean, like I said, I'm such a reader, and books have been such a huge part of my life. So to think that we could have that kind of impact on other kids is pretty phenomenal.
That's great. Well said.
Joseph is asking if the book will be updated again when there's a new president.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. I think that we envision this work as continuing over the years. I think we envision this work as going back over some things and changing and adding, and hopefully, like I was saying earlier, add to the story. That would be awesome, especially having a chance to revisit things and maybe say, hey, updated and revised, and these graphics are all revisable and updatable. I think that's we designed it when we were designing it. We designed it for that purpose. Yeah, so that's the plan right now.
Jersey is asking, what's the reason behind the title?
That is a good question. Coming up with titles is really hard.
Yes.
It's like naming your
It's like
child.
naming your child. Yeah.
It's really hard. It's really hard. And I think, again, we kind of started with this idea of this is a president's book, and then it kind of morphed into this is a civics book. And then one night, as we were sitting around kind of just, spitballing titles, PJ said, what if it had like We the People in it? And then he just said We the People and the President. And we both just looked at each other and said, yep, that's it. After about an hour of kind of nonsense titles that were sort of terrible.
Right, you go overly fancy, what's that engaging title that is really going to draw people in, and you're throwing out all these ideas, and then we're like, well, it's the Constitution and the President, We the People and the President. I think that's it. I mean,
that's it.
why mess with something that speaks volumes? I think, and I think on the title part, it was important for us to put We the People first. And if there is any kind of discussion, was that that's more what the book became, the story of the people and the people's interaction with the president, and even the reader being part of that, the people learning about the presidents and learning about history, and keep it simple. That was our idea, and I think it's to the point, and it works.
What did you learn when writing the book, and what surprised you the most?
Oh gosh, we learned so much. I don't even know where to begin with what we learned.
Right.
I mean,
that's a good question.
I mean, we were reading. Our nightstand at one point just had like a stack of 30 books on it. So we learned so much. I think for me, I think the main thing that I learned, and this is going to sound kind of cheesy, and I know that, so I'm sorry, but I think that I learned that like I have a place in this, that I have a place in this government, and I have a place in this system, and I have a place in my local community that maybe I hadn't really thought about before. I think I always thought of like, okay, I'm a teacher and I'm a mom, and I never really thought about like where I existed in some bigger space. And then as we started writing this, and I was like, no, I really believe that. Like, I really want kids to write the president. I really want kids to vote. And it kind of made me self-reflect a little bit and say, okay, what am I doing to be a part of this bigger community as well? So maybe I didn't learn facts as much as just I learned a whole lot about me.
Yeah.
I told you it was going to be cheesy.
No, that's not cheesy. That's true.
It's not cheesy at all.
Yeah.
Can I use your answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think, you know what, for me, besides all of that good stuff, mine is going to be probably the more serious moment or not serious, but at least more technical moment is I just learned how to make a book, honestly. How to, that's as simple as it gets. I can make posters pretty well and we print them off ourselves and do all this, but simply learning a new format and enjoying that and working with these awesome professionals that we got to work with on this book and their ideas and their insights and their recommendations, but also them letting us be free and express ourselves in whatever we wanted to do and not limit our ideas. I think I learned how to do a new format. And in that, I hope that, I know, not I hope, but I know that helped me grow as a person as well. And to be able to see then the final format in front of you, I think that's the power of a book. What I learned also was you can read a book, you can enjoy books, they can shape your life, they can shape your philosophy and your outlook, they can make your day, they can be a comforting thing to read at night. They have so many different roles in our lives. And we can share books with people across the world, and I think when this book came in front of us, finished, it's like, oh, yeah, now we're part of that. And I felt that's what I learned was this process is so valuable. And that's the reason why these things exist and, always will exist is because it works. It works. It's not flashy, you don't have to charge it up. You don't have to, it's right there. And it's always right there. It's like a friend that's right there by you at any time. And you can get your friend off the bookshelf and read, and then you can put them away and come back to them later. But that's what I learned.
I think you just kind of summarized a lot of things that I'd been thinking about when reading it. And you do bring up a lot of very kind of like seemingly normal people that were able to influence and change the way the presidency is. So it does take the title We the People and the President, and it shows more than just a book about presidents, but you talk about some of the people, normal citizens, that were able to influence and change the way that history has, shape the course of our government. So
yeah, I think that's part of that We the People idea is you don't know who's shaping our government currently or who will shape our government or even our country's story. And I think maybe it's the people who are nameless sometimes, but we are all part of We the People, moving this together. And if you activate your if you're civically engaged, you're part of that story. And that's a big deal with us.
I think we have time for one more question, so we will do Joan's question. Actually, Cliff, do you want to read this one since, I want to hear Cliff read this.
Excellent. You guys are both incredible educators. Will it be hard for you to leave your teaching careers when you become rich and famous?
Now that you're famous. We're a long way away from that.
Right. Teaching has been, and to all teachers out there, and to our students out there, and to anybody else. I know the pandemic has changed many professions, and it's drastically changed a lot of American life and life in the world. And being a student has become harder, and being a teacher has become harder, and being whatever else people are, it's made it more difficult. And I think that through our participation in our classrooms, it's such a rewarding experience.
It is.
I can't ever envision not doing it.
I can't imagine not being able to
Sure,
market all of our stuff. we get the benefit of 180 kids telling us, "Oh no, that's not fun," or "Oh, that's great." So that would be an interesting take too. I'm not quite sure how we do that. Our own 3 kids would be very busy, I think.
Yeah, right.
So I think that was Joan, and Joan, I'm not sure we have an answer for you.
I want to remind everyone watching that we have signed copies available at our store. So this signed sticker right up here. This is a really incredible, beautiful book that I'm certain will be at home on many people's bookshelves, many classroom bookshelves. And if you are an educator, be sure to contact us if you want to put this book in your classroom. But it is available for order at left-bank.com. If you want to have a personalized copy, so if when I get my book signed, I can have it signed to me. I can have it signed to my nephew, who is a big fan of presidents as well. So be sure to request a personalized copy in the order comments. And PJ, Jamie, I just want to thank you both so much for writing this incredible book, for putting the work in to make it so fascinating, so interesting, and so unique.
Thank you
Yes,
so
I
much.
second that. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
No, we just thank you so much for having us on tonight. This was a lot of fun, and we've been looking forward to it all week, and this was really great.
Yeah. Thank you guys. This was wonderful. Cliff, Shane, we really appreciate your support and you having us on here tonight.
And all your work.
And all your work you do.
Absolutely.
So we really appreciate that.
I want to leave by thanking everyone joining us this evening. It's really incredible to see such a wonderful and chatty audience. I will make sure to share all the comments with PJ and Jamie as well, because there are a lot of students that are saying hello that we didn't have time to share all of those comments on the program. But thank you for tuning in, and be sure to check out our event calendar to find other amazing authors that we are bringing to you both virtually and in person. So have a great rest of your evening, everyone.